أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون. قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون. قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين. قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم. قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. صدق الله العظيم.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the previous verses, Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala illustrates with two examples why people are on the wrong path, why people are deviated. Sometimes people are deviated because they are stubbornly practicing on the wrong path, or people chose to be ignorant of the right path. So Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala says to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you can warn them or you do not warn them. They have already made up the mind not to be on the straight path. They have made up the mind to be on the path of deviation. So it will not make any difference if you have to advise them. In the coming verse, Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala then explains the criteria for a person being on the correct path and on the straight path. And he says, إِنَّمَا تُنذِرُ مَنِ اتَّبَعَ الذِّكْرَ وَخَشِيَ الرَّحْمَنَ بِالْغَيْبِ. That verily you want that person who follows the advice and he fears Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, he fears Rahman without seeing Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. In this verse, Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala explains that if a person, he cooperates, he follows the advice, he listens, and then he also brings faith in Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, then such a person will benefit from the advice and such a person will follow the straight path. And apart from that, he will benefit from the consequences of adopting the correct path. فَبَشِّرْهُ بِمَغْفِرَةٍ وَأَجْرٍ كَرِيمٍ. Give glad tidings to such a person who follows the advice, adopts the correct path, give him the glad tidings of forgiveness and an honorable reward. So after explaining these two groups of people, those people that are deviated and those people that are on the straight path, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala further says, إِنَّا نَحْنُ نُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى وَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَدَّمُوا وَآثَارَهُمْ. Verily, we will give life to the dead. Whoever has been on the straight path, after he dies, he is going to be resurrected. Whoever adopted the wrong path, after he dies, he will also be resurrected. And they're going to stand before Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. And in the lifetime, whatever they have done, it is all written down. وَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَدَّمُوا. That we will write down whatever they have sent forth. Good deeds, that's written down. Bad deeds, that is written down. And not only the good and the bad, but وَآثَارَهُمْ. The effect of the good and the bad would also be written down. From this verse we understand there are two things. One is the act of an individual, and one is the effect and the consequences of the act of the individual. These are two different things. And a person has to be very, very careful and very calculated before he does anything. It's not only the act, but what are the far-reaching implications of that act? The person has to consider that as well. So just as the act is written down, good or bad, the consequence of the act is also written down, whether it is good or whether it is bad. And I could cite to you a few examples to understand this. It is mentioned in one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is reported to have mentioned, إِذَا مَاتَ إِبْنُ آدَمْ إِنْقَطَعَ عَمَلُهُ إِلَّا مِنْ ثَلَاثٍ وَلَدٌ صَالِحٌ يَدْعُو لَهُ عِلْمٌ يُنْتَفَعُ أو صدقة جارية أو كما قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم says, when a person passes away, all his acts end and he terminate. When a person passes away, he cannot do anything. But there are three things of his which will remain even after his death. And these are the effects, these are the consequences of the good deed that the person used to do in his lifetime. He had a child in his lifetime. He nurtured the child. Nurturing the child is a good act. But the effect of the nurturing, the person will benefit after the person's demise. The person is gone, he passed away. But it is the effect and the consequences of him making tarbiyat of the child that he will benefit in his qabr. The second is a learned person. He taught the people Quran, he taught the people Hadith, he has given discourses of Quran and Hadith to the people. These are acts of virtue, the person has passed away. But what is the effect of that? Probably people have changed their lives, people have changed their philosophies, people have changed their ideologies, people have adopted the correct and straight path. The effects of that have far-reaching effects. From an individual to the family, from a family to family, and from families to nations. Far-reaching effects. The person is gone from the dunya, but he benefits from the effects of his good deed in the qabr and the akhirat. And the third, the person has given sadaqah and charity. That is a good act, it's an act of virtue. But the far-reaching implication of that, he probably didn't even know the far-reaching implication of his charitable act. So many people, so many creations of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala benefited from him. And he now benefits of that in the qabr and the akhirat. Another example, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, when a person makes wuzu, the act of wuzu is an act of ibadat. But the effect of the wuzu, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam explains that that is also recorded and it has far-reaching implications. It's not only just doing the wuzu. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned that when the person makes wuzu, when he washes his face, whatever sin the person has committed with his eyes, with his ears and with his mouth, with the barakat of that wuzu, all his sins are forgiven. So it's not only the act, it is the effect of the act that is also recorded and has implications. In one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told the Sahaba that on the day of Qiyamah he would recognize the Sahaba. He would recognize the Ummah. So Sahaba mentioned to Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, O Prophet of Allah, how are you going to recognize the people on the day of Qiyamah? There will be millions and trillions of people. There will be people of the preceding nations and there will be people from your Ummah. How are you going to recognize them? So Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned, I will recognize them ghurram muhajjileen. They will make wuzu. They have done wuzu in the world. But the effect of the wuzu will be, on the day of Qiyamah, the faces will be shining and the limbs of wuzu will also be shining. So it is not only the act, it is the effect of the act to which a person will also benefit on the day of Qiyamah. It is mentioned in one hadith, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned, one is to fast. Fasting is an act of virtue. But the effect of the fasting is that the smell that comes out from the mouth of the person, the effect of the fasting, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned, لَخَلُوفُ فَمِ الصَّائِمِ أَطْيَبُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ مِنْ رِيحِ الْمِسْكِ أو كما قال Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The person is fasting, but the effect of the fasting, the smell that comes out, that is also loved by Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala more than the smell of musk. It is mentioned about one person, a student, he was a beggar, obviously trying to make ends meet, trying to collect some money for his studies. So he happened to go door to door, begging for some money or some food that somebody may probably give him. So he came to a particular house, tapped at the door, and one woman gave him a glass of milk to drink. He was satiated, and his life carried on, the life of the woman also carried on. But look at the effect of what that woman have done. This person, he carried on with his life and he became a doctor. He became a specialist. He happened to be serving as a consultant in one hospital. Many years have passed by and this woman happened to contract a sickness or a disease. And then she had to go to a specialist doctor. Many doctors were under this specialist doctor. So when this woman went for a checkup, went for an exam, and the specialist doctor, who was once a boy, who happened to benefit from the glass of milk from this woman, he realized that that was the same woman that had given me a glass of milk. When he saw the name, he told all the specialists under him to see that woman. Many years, many months have passed by until that woman was cured. Now obviously, now the biggest problem is going to be the bill. Who's going to pay the bill? She was cured, she was very well, and now the concern was about paying the bill. So when the bill came to the specialist doctor, he wrote it behind the bill, paid with a glass of milk. So when the woman saw this, that there's a bill, it's scratched out, completely paid in exchange for a glass of milk, so she inquired, what is this? That's when the specialist doctor came up to her and told to her, I was a young boy, I was extremely hungry, I was begging, trying to make ends meet, but when I came to your door, I remember that day, I tapped at the door, you gave me a glass of milk, I was satiated. You satiated me that time when I was in need, it is now my turn to satiate you when you are in need. So Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala tells us, وَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَدَّمُوا وَآثَارُهُم. It's not only the act, it is the effect of the act that has far-reaching implications, in good and in bad as well. In one hadith, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam speaks about the consequence of the bad act of a person. He speaks about Qabil and Habil, the two sons of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. Qabil killed Habil. It was the first murder that took place on the face of the earth. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentions, because he is the one that initiated qatl, he is the one that initiated murder in this world. He started something, the effect of which is also going to flow in the children of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. There is going to be murders taking place all the time. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned the effect of that will be, whenever any murder takes place, the sin of that will fall on the first son of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam and Qabil. So this is the effect of the sin of the individual. Likewise, in one hadith, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is reported to have mentioned, استنزهوا من البول فإن عامة عذاب القبر منه. When you relieve yourself, then you must be very careful that urine drops don't splash on your body or on your clothes. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam happened to pass by a grave. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned to a Sahaba, there are two inmates in a grave, they are being punished. Huma yu'azzaban wa ma yu'azzabani fi kabir. The two inmates of the grave, they are being punished. And they are being punished for something that was difficult for them to abstain from. Now in this, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned, one was that person who should not exercise precaution for the urine drops, and the other person used to engage in gossip. In this hadith we understand, one is the urine drops and the effects of the person not exercising precaution, that the person is being punished. And when we look at the far-reaching effects of this ayat, it's not only an act, it is the effect of the act that one has to be very, very careful. Whenever we do anything, we need to be very calculated, be very measured in everything that we do. As we grow up in life, we have to be more responsible, and we need to think very, very carefully. If I'm going to do a particular act, what is the effect of that act? Take for example, a person happens to choose his friend. One is just to be a friend with a person, but the far-reaching effects of friendship. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, "Al-maru ala dini khalili," that a person is on a path of his friend. If he has a good friend, the effect of the friend will come in his life. If he has a bad friend, the effect of that will also come into his life. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave advice about getting married to a woman. تُنْكَحُ الْمَرْأَةُ لِأَرْبَعٍ لِمَالِهَا وَلِحَسَبِهَا وَلِجَمَالِهَا وَلِدِينِهَا فَاصْفَرْ بِذَاتِ الدِّينِ تَرِبَتْ يَدَاكَ. When you are choosing a marriage partner, you need to be very careful, because the effect of that woman will have an effect in your life. If you got married to a wealthy woman, she would want you to stand up to her level, to her standard. You got married to a woman of high status, then you have to adjust yourself according to that. If you got married to a beautiful woman, then that's also going to have an effect on you. But if you got married to a woman with taqwa, with piety, with salah, with deen, a woman that performs the salah, a woman that makes zikr, a woman that obedient to her husband, that will also have an effect on you. So here again in this hadith, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam advises us, it's not only the act, it is the consequence of the act that you must also take into consideration when you do anything. The same also goes when it comes to our mu'amalat, when it comes to our business. The fuqaha have clearly mentioned that it's not only the act of buying and selling. You've got to see the consequence of the buying and selling. What's the far-reaching consequence of it? If I have grapes, if I have a farm and I have grapes, or an orchard of grapes, and I know that one person is going to be selling wine, or if the person is going to make wine or intoxicant from my grapes, it is not permissible for me to sell grapes to a person. Although it is my grapes, I can sell it, but the consequence of my act would be committing a wrong act. Or for example, at the time of war, at the time of corruption, I've got a weaponry shop. I cannot sell my guns to anyone who is going to go and cause mischief and cause havoc in the community and society. So from these ahadith and from these incidents we understand, it is not only the act of the individual that is considered, it is the far-reaching implication of the act that is also considered and written by Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Further, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala says, وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ أَحْصَيْنَاهُ فِي إِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ. Whatever act we do, each and every act, we have preserved it in the open and in the clear book. That is, in the Lawh Mahfuz, and everything is recorded by Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Further, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala then gives us an incident. And before reading the verses, a brief introduction to that incident. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was sent as a Nabi first to Makkah Mukarramah, and from there for the entire mankind. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam faced stiff opposition from his own people. Drinking wine and alcohol, womanizing, worshipping idols, these were common practices in Makkah Mukarramah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam suddenly started telling the people, he is the Prophet of Allah. Do not worship the idols. Stay away from wrong and evil. Bring faith in the oneness of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam immediately received opposition. People started condemning him. So in order to give support to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Almighty Allah tabarak wa ta'ala encourages him and tells him that just as you received opposition, we have sent you as a warner, you've received opposition, but that is not unique to you. Other prophets in the past were also sent, and they also received opposition. So Allah tabarak wa ta'ala gives the example of how in the town of Intaqiya, is a town in Sham, city in Sham, in Syria, in the coastal area, where Allah tabarak wa ta'ala first sent 2 prophets to warn the people. And when the people rebelled against the prophets, then Allah tabarak wa ta'ala then sent the 3rd prophet as a support for the previous 2 prophets. And Allah mentions that how the people opposed these prophets, and what was the response of the prophets to the people. So Allah tabarak wa ta'ala says, وَضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا أَصْحَابَ الْقَرْيَةِ. And Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam explained to the people the example of the people of the town. Is جَاءَهَا الْمُرْسَلُونَ, when the prophets came up to them. إِذْ أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْهِمُ اثْنَيْنِ. Remember when we sent to them 2 prophets. فَكَذَّبُوهُمَا. The people made these 2 prophets liars. فَعَزَّزْنَا بِثَالِثٍ. And then we strengthened these 2 prophets with the 3rd prophet. فَقَالُوا إِنَّا إِلَيْكُمْ مُرْسَلُونَ. All these prophets, they told to the people of Insaqiya that we are sent to you. Almighty Allah tabarak wa ta'ala sent us to you to invite you to the oneness of Allah. The response of the people was very, very provocative. First response they gave to the people, imagine, Nabi of Allah, they are gone to the nation and inviting the people. They bring it solely for the pleasure of Allah, no materialistic gain, nothing, solely for the ridwan and the happiness of Allah. But look at the response of the people. First thing they said, Ma antum illa basharun misluna. What's so unique about you people? You are a human being just like us. So if you are a human being and we are a human being, so what's the point of you inviting us? So immediately condemn these prophets. Second, the people told, وَمَا أَنزَلَ الرَّحْمَنُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ إِنْ أَنْتُمْ إِلَّا تَكْذِبُونَ. You people are liars. Imagine the people are responding to the Nabis of Allah, that you people are liars. Allah didn't send anything. Allah didn't send any prophet. He didn't send any revelation. Your people are making up their own story. And then قَالُوا رَبُّنَا يَعْلَمُ إِنَّا إِلَيْكُمْ لَمُرْسَلُونَ. So the prophets responded and they said that our Rabb knows that we are indeed sent to you. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينَ. That our responsibility is to openly and clearly convey our message to you people. From this incident, we understand certain etiquettes and certain adab of da'wah. Going out in da'wah and tableegh, certain adab and certain etiquettes. Firstly, a da'i, when he goes out, he needs to condition his mind that he's doing it solely for the pleasure of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. If he is being charged up with emotion, then he will not be able to be effective in his da'wah. Look at the statement that are made to the Prophet of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. These are highly charged statements. Imagine somebody has to tell to you that you are a liar. You are inviting somebody towards good and he's telling you you're a liar. Now if you are there for your own purpose, there's personality involvement in that, you're immediately going to respond with emotion. But if you are there for the pleasure of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, you're going to put emotions aside. You're going to contain yourself. You're going to be tolerant. And you're always going to be focused on the ridwan and the pleasure of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. So therefore, it is very important for a da'i to be highly skilled and to understand, always put in front of him the purpose. What are you there for? Are you there for personal purpose, or are you there for the pleasure of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala? If the intention, the person always conscious of his intention to please Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, then it will become very easy for the person to take any difficulty in the path of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. He will contain himself, he will tolerate himself, and the more contained and tolerant the person will be, the more efficient and proficient the person will be in the work of da'wah, and that will have a profound impact on the hearts of the people. We make dua that Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala also give us the adab, teach us the adab and etiquette of da'wah, and Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala also make it a means of hidayat and guidance. It was the dua of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He taught to us, Allahumma hadina wahdi bina waj'alna sababan liman ihtada. Oh Allah, you guide us, and oh Allah, guide other people to us, and oh Allah, make it a means of guidance for the people. So just as we should make an effort to be on the straight path, we should also make an effort to guide other people on the straight path, but with adab and etiquettes which are mentioned in the Quran al-Kareem. Subhanallah wa bihamdik, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.